The views expressed by the speakers of CamaPlan podcasts are those of the speakers only and may not reflect those of Cama, its members, or employees. Cama does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by these speakers. Professional advisors should be consulted before implementing any options presented. Cama absolutely does not endorse or recommend any individual or organization, including the speakers. Cama, its members, and employees do not accept liability for losses and/or damages arising from errors or omissions within, reliance upon, or any use of the information provided by the speakers. Individuals are strongly encouraged by Cama to conduct their own due diligence before making any investment choices. Cama does not act as, nor offer the services of, an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. If tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other similar expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional should be sought. Hello and welcome back to The Road to Financial Freedom, a podcast that allows experts to share their stories and secrets to unlocking their financial independence. This podcast is brought to you by CamaPlan, a self-directed IRA administrator located in Ambler, Pennsylvania that is focused on educating investors with different ways to grow their retirement savings faster through alternative investments. And of course, we are continuing to record our podcast remotely. I'm Jess Jones, CamaPlan team member and your podcast host. This week's guest is changing the face of multifamily investing. In addition to founding the Apartment Queen, a multifamily syndication that provides women with the educational tools to build wealth and create passive income, she is the founder of the SheVest app, Property Management AI, and RE by Kaylee LLC residential real estate brokerage. She is an active key principal, general partner, and lead investor in numerous apartment investments and real estate assets under management. Not only that, but she has interviewed countless women who have disrupted the industry on her podcast, Number One Leading Ladies, and has created her networking group, Women Who Invest Wednesdays, which is now also digital. She is a dedicated leader whose experiences and mission have benefited countless SheVesters everywhere with the tools they need to create financial independence and a space for escaping codependency, toxic relationships, and a lack of spotlight in this industry. So please join me in giving the Apartment Queen, Kaylee McMahon, a warm welcome. Hey, Kaylee, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, Jess, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You're so professional.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I just love your bio. I love everything about it as a woman in this industry who is, I feel like I've struggled with all of these things that you have aimed to create a better space for women in this industry and even in the arts industry. So I'm happy to get to talk to you today more about your mission and your experience. So could you start by telling us some more about your background, like where you were born, grew up, what you went to school for, studied? Because I'm always interested in finding out what our guests have to say about this, because it's like always somehow related to what you do now.
No, not at all. So I was born in Oregon and ended up being involved in as a work professional, I suppose, a bunch of different stuff. Basically, I know a little bit about a lot. So, I mean, everything from IT, nannying. I had a personal concierge business for wealthy people in Dallas. That was my first business venture. To real estate on the retail side, flipping side, so investments, I suppose, and then getting involved with multifamily real estate. And there's some other stuff kind of in there too. You just always learning, new skill sets. So I kind of got into multifamily real estate by accident, to tell you the truth, when I learned that my concierge business, I don't have a business degree, but to have a business in scale, you have to have systems, advertising, people, funding for all that. And I didn't understand that. So I used my real estate cash flow from retail sales to get, so I got into retail sales to fund that business, but then ended up actually funding buying apartments because I realized that there were so many, not better ways, but better ways for me to be able to create leverage and space for my future goals, which were, empowering women to be involved, and then also, having a safe place to live in their community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that response because I also come from a different but similar background in that I have bounced around to a lot of different things. I worked in a theater getting yelled at by patrons who didn't like the show. I worked in a dog treat bakery, and now I host a business podcast. So it's just, it kind of, you bounce around, but all of those little experiences, I think, like you're saying, lead into the next one. So, you touched on how you first discovered real estate investing. Did you have any early influences or mentors, any inspirational texts or people in your life that kind of guided you to inform the way you think about investing or introduced you to retail real estate investing? No, it's just all just kind of happened. Yeah.
I spend a lot of time, not a lot, but now I spend some time for myself once a year traveling by myself. And it was on a trip in 2017, maybe 16 at that point. I'm not sure. Where I went to Australia, and I went by myself and in a car for 2 weeks and spent a lot of time driving and did a lot of audiobooks. And one of them was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Another one was Cashflow Quadrant. And so I kind of knew, or I thought that later on the path of how I was going to do what I wanted to do becomes more clear, I think, as you understand what's out there, what options are available. And I didn't know anything and didn't have any guidance from anyone in my family, but or friends, really, because they didn't have a clue about investing. But that book showed me the idea that was out there. And, okay, now I understand how I'm going to have the little 4 greenhouses to get to the big red hotel. And that big red hotel in my head was kind of a way to have what I thought had to be a 501c3 organization in the future, but you can structure those for purpose, and make profit. But however, getting some capital in the beginning, having a business, I can't just skip that. You know what I mean? There has to be for me a building of that first, and then be able to take care of yourself and people around you financially, et cetera, before you can usually give the best. You have to be able to take care of yourself. So I guess that showed me that the idea was there, and then later on it took a lot of research and more to be able to understand how to do it. But yeah, that was my first intro.
That's really interesting. I love and respect the hell out of the fact that you take a trip for yourself once a year. I think that that's a great space for you to be able to allow yourself to have the mind space and the bandwidth to actually pick something up like that, and to be able to decide, hey, this is something I want to continue learning further is an incredible tool for oneself. So I think that that's great. And then you had also mentioned too that you have experience in, house flipping, and you've done it all. You've done a bit of, you said you've learned a little bit about a lot of things. So note buying, active and passive investing, and being your own lender. So for you, what have been some of the, even early on or even now more recently, what have been some of the lessons learned that you've been able to kind of pick up throughout these experiences that have now led you to where you stand now as the apartment queen?
Focus. So I was on ADD meds for a decade, and I didn't realize, because you can't see from the outside looking in. You can only see from the inside looking out. But finally, some people started dropping some hints, and I started listening, or maybe that's what it was. But realizing that I was snappy and short and too serious all the time, and I just couldn't relax, and I was so tense and intense, and anyway, I wasn't sleeping, and it just totally altered my personality. And so I'm a pretty friendly, bubbly, happy person. So after years of figuring that out and then getting off those drugs, realizing that, okay, now this is who I am. I got to work on my appetite. I got to work on my concentration patterns. So then I had to work on everything. And then there's a million other things I was working on too. But as far as being able to train my mind to focus, time blocking, during the day, having a morning routine that keeps me empowered, as far as instead of playing defense all day, you're on offense. There's a few things that I've learned as far as being able to, even RoboKiller, is one thing I use on my phone all the time. While we're sitting here, I'll probably get 5 to 10 phone calls because I've got a house for sale, selling right now. I'm in an apartment selling right now. I've got, we're buying one right now, and I'm fundraising for it, and I have return phone calls, and I'm going under contract maybe on another one, and people want answers. There's a million moving pieces, but I will check those messages at noon and 4, and that's what I do. It's in my voicemail. It drives old people crazy because they expect you to be like that. Yeah. And it's like, no, this is my business and I can run it how I want to. And how I run it is that I'm able to do things like this where people online can find us and learn things about us. And it doesn't always have to be one-on-one, face-to-face for us to be able to, say, for example, find investors, or for us to have a relationship, or for us to teach people information that, they would never be able to get from a book. So the life lessons, for example, that I learned, not only to be able to learn how to concentrate and focus on one revenue generating thing at a time, and then all the other things that you're doing, you have the time block for them, and you have other people in charge of those projects. So you're just kind of dipping back in and making sure that like the quality is where you want it to be and the deadlines are met. And I'm pretty good at organizing, coordinating teams and deadlines and things like that. But so I guess learning how to focus, control yourself, don't be on defense, be on offense. And then the bigger message, I suppose, that has caused me a lot of heartache at a young age, which is great because, I got really close to losing everything and almost kind of wish I would have lost everything because it's like, there's nowhere else but up. But so I didn't lose a roof over my head, but like the first couple of deals that I got involved with, that I did everything and I raised all the money and I found them and I ran them and I flipped them and I did everything on them. I had a partner that like had a plan to take over as soon as like the value was added and to never sell the properties, and that they basically cheat our investors out of like what they signed up for. And I could go on and on and on, but really the thing is people say trust but verify, but like what does that mean? Like really, in reality, how do you verify? Where do you go? You can't Google search stuff. You know what I mean? Like for me, finding out that person had a fake credit repair business and that they had screwed 3 people out of $150K a piece, or that they were a child abuser, and all this stuff is not public record. They haven't been caught for any of it yet. You know what I mean? Like to know that kind of information, you have to have access to deep research or deep data information. So active intelligence, if you will. So, knowing how to find that information is key. So I've actually started a side company that I garner data from other sources. I'm essentially just the viaduct or the pathway to get you in front of that information. But basically as much due diligence as I do on the physical deal, the neighborhood, the zip code, like the economy, like all the little puzzle pieces of these deals, you got to do just as much due diligence on the people that you're getting involved with too. So if anyone ever has a question in their mind, especially if you're a woman, men are not as good as we are, where we can kind of feel that there's something off. We may not know data empirically why there's something off, but then I can basically use my resources now to provide you that empirical backup to, okay, here's this person's behavior pattern, here's what they've kind of done in the past, here's their digital footprint, here's and the idea is for women like myself who are young and maybe look like an easy target because I don't have a lot of money and I don't have a bunch of support and I'm new and maybe people think I'm stupid. But, now if they underestimate me, it's not a great idea. And I want the ecosystem of women around me to be able to have those resources too. So you can reach out at any time. We have a website, it's bigsistersecurity.net. You can't hide from Big Sister. So,
I love that.
Do your due diligence on the people. Yes. And then be able to structure your schedule in a way that makes you concentrate on, if you are in multiple things at different times, not at the same time.
Thank you. That's such a candid and like well thought out response too. And like that had to come with the experiences that you went through. So I think that, you being able to share that and being able to build business out of that to benefit your community, to benefit women is really admirable, especially because I just look at my reflection right now in this computer and I'm like, I'm easy target. I've written all over my face. So I think being able to.
Well, that's also that. These evil people.
Yes, yeah.
That's their take on you, So, but sometimes, like for me, what I had to do some self evaluation. What am I doing to attract these efforts? You know what I mean? Like seriously, because look at yourself. I have a lot of trauma that I've dealt with in my family, and a lot of that trauma is something that I am still going through because of the legal system, and so it's still present in my life, and I'm still healing from it because it's still present. Well, I would tell people, especially women, that I wanted to bond with a lot of information about my past and my family and all these things I've had to and still go through the aftermath of all of it. I'm still healing. And then one lucky person decided to use it against me, you know, and steal things from me, steal my business, like turn people against me because of using my weakness that I was ashamed of. But it's not something that I like asked for.
Right.
It's just part of your life path. But anyway, so then at this point, having those resources now, it's kind of like, okay, now I have a big scary Uncle Eddie. Don't F with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're never an easy target
Yes.
if you just have the right people that support you.
I think that's an incredible point too. You bringing up the point that it's just as important to do due diligence on your partners. I mean, I've asked that question to a lot of guests too. And I feel like I hear this a lot in business in general. It's like, oh, just find someone whose strengths complement yours. And it's like, well, there's so much more to that. There's an entire past and present to that person, and future.
And no matter what you put in no matter what you put in a contract, if you're dealing with an evil person, it's not going to go well.
Definitely. I think that you raise, an excellent point in being able to, and I think you raise another excellent point of the fact that women's emotionality in business is not necessarily a weakness, because we have that strength to be able to be able to intuit and to be able to figure out, something feels off about the situation. And like you said, I might not have the empirical data to prove it, but I have a gut feeling, and my gut's never been wrong. And I feel like yours has never been wrong either. So I feel like the instincts that we have as women, it's definitely something that I appreciate that your businesses have been able to build up rather than break down. Stop being emotional in business is something we hear all the time as women, which is stupid, because I think emotion does play into it.
Don't lead with it, and don't attach it to outcomes. So for example, if something's not going well, don't attach emotion to, like, I'm upset. I mean, you can feel it for like 5 minutes or whatever, get over it and actually find a solution. Just don't attach it to an event.
Right.
So.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, that's something I still continue to struggle with and work through now. But I think it's an invaluable lesson that, like you said, it's important to learn young too. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that's an incredibly candid answer, and I appreciate you sharing it with me. So let's talk some more about your businesses. What does the Apartment Queen do, and who's a typical client? And if you want to dive some more into the other businesses that you've stood up recently too, I'd be happy to hear more about, who your audiences are for each of those.
Yeah, let's focus on the Apartment Queen, because like I mentioned, the other businesses kind of support that, where, education and technology and things like that. But the main core business is our capital company. It's called Apartment Queen Investments. And what we do is we take female lead sponsors who have a tremendous amount of experience, and lead meaning that they are the sponsor, or we're finding apartment deals. And what we're doing is we're buying them, and then we're putting together a company and then selling shares or a partnership position in that business to different limited partners. And so what we do is we manage the deals. That's not just the management of the property manager, the construction, if we're doing any kind of financial refinances, filing of the taxes, getting our K-1s out to our investors, having constant meetings with people when things are going sideways. There's people live in these properties, so there's blood, flood, and fire, I guess is how we say it. So there's those typical things, and you have insurance claims you have to see through and negotiate. I mean, there's never ending responsibilities when it comes to asset managing. So it's important to have these sponsors, but for us, we use female sponsors. So, or we empower female sponsors to lead these deals. In addition to that, like, for example, now we have a female-focused fund. And so what that fund does is it brings in money from mostly female limited partners. Men can invest as well, but we have something a little bit different than what other funds are doing. For the men to invest, they do need to pick a female mentee. And inside their documents that they fill out to subscribe or to invest in the deal, there's a position for normally their spouse. And their spouse could be their mentee if she's not super involved normally. But it could be their niece, their cousin, their mom. I mean, whoever in their life, as a female, and just isn't really very privy to the information that comes along with investing in apartments. How does it work? What's the pros? What's the cons? How do the numbers work? How often do we get reporting? What's normal in my reporting? Renovation photos, like just the whole investment experience. They don't have that, so they get to basically have a sub login to his profile. Meaning that we can't adjust bank account information. We can't change the LLC's information or edit any of that, but we can log in and see all of the information that an investor would be privy to. And then actually we bump up the preferred return of the male investor if she writes just like a sentence once a quarter in her portal access on how her education is going. And that's just me pushing my agenda of creating our North Star by 2030 of 1 billion shevesters. So we're working on, for example, every guy that invests, we have like one dad that has 4 girls, and he's like, okay, and I'm like, bam, 4 were just created. Okay, great. You know, or actually one of mine is a financial advisor, and now they just changed the rules to accreditation status. So you're an accredited investor now if you have your series, I think it's like 6.5, Series 7, Series 83, so your financial advisor tests, and you're an active advisor. So he's got access, for example, to BlackRock, Blackstone, these huge versions of me. However, he just said he'd rather have his daughter and her soccer team have access to our calls and have access to our information, because it's like a little bit different of a perspective. And he's right, because the way that we talk about and create our communities or take care of our communities is different. And even when it comes to future partners, we're talking about using my small business enterprise and women business enterprise status to be able to qualify for money for infrastructure and money for communities and some other after school care programs that we'd like to implement in our properties. And I mean, I'm not saying the guys don't do that, but guys don't do that.
Yeah,
so,
you're creating accountability. I think like and being able to kind of put an action item
really
to it.
Strong communities.
Exactly.
Really strong communities. Like, people will never leave these communities if the, say, single mother or single dad, doesn't even matter, parent is then able to, instead of having a second mortgage worth of money they got to pay for childcare, then they have some kind of childcare subsidy, or not just childcare but education, depending on their age bracket, on property in our community center. And so to where that they can focus on, you know, getting a new job, getting a raise, starting a business, whatever it is, to create more income for the family. And then maybe eventually their goal is to even get out of the apartment complex, you know. But if we have a community that thrives like that, I mean, that's the goal. So I've talked to a couple other, I call them big ballers that I talked to at National Multi-Housing Council this year. And there are 2 or 3 other females who already were in that thought process. So we're working on putting together where we can put all of our properties together, or utilize one community manager that goes to all of our properties and manages that process.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm excited to see, you get there in 2030 as well. Yeah, I'm so excited to see what that, like, how that results. And the fact that it's...
And even our residents, we're not doing this yet, but even our residents, depending, like, because I'm doing a crowdfunding offering now, I mean, you can invest down to $1,000 if you can get in. Like, normally we have our accredited people come in first, and then it goes by amount in relationship to investing with us before. But I mean, that was designed so that, you know, mom, grandma, anyone that wants to invest, that they could have a possibility of getting in, having equity, having cash flow, having the tax advantages, and seeing what passive mailbox money looks like and feels like. But the people in the community could also do the same, and then own a piece of the actual property they live in and have more pride taking care of what they live in. So that's not happening yet. The crowdfunding is, but the other, you know, giving up shares to our residents, we're working on that.
That's awesome. Well, best of luck with that. I think that's going to be incredible, and I can't wait to see the communities that do get built from that. With you then, like, looking at, okay, you've built so many things from the ground up, and I feel like you're an incredible strategist in how you've kind of laid things out so far. How have you, over time, and I know you've discussed focus and making sure that you align yourself with the correct people, but how have you developed personal strategies for you to kind of grow, maintain strong syndications like this, and make strong returns on your investments?
I mean, tell you the truth, strategy is not probably my strong suit, because I'm the visionary. So I'm somebody who spends my time dreaming,
right? And that's not a bad thing.
Visioning,
that's fair.
Yeah. So the hardest part about life is that you're usually caught up in, like, your to-do list and a million different things, and so then it's really hard to have that time to, like, vision and to think and to dream and to, like, not be doing busy stuff, you know. So I have to have those supporting roles with people that understand operations, for example. You know, right now we're working on bringing in someone that's specifically over acquisitions. Like, in the beginning of your business, you do have to learn all the different pieces and parts. And I'm lucky that in the beginning of my real estate career, I was in leasing. And so I understand that perspective. So when we have a problem with one of our core competencies, which is leasing, then I have to kind of sometimes dig back into the business, create some systems, teach people the systems, then dip back out. You know what I mean? So as far as delegating, that's super important. I guess as far as systems, having the right people that can help me put in those systems. Like I said, I'm not the best. I do like simple things like a CRM. I use, like, Trello. Trying to remember who what is that big company that every realtor in the world is part of now?
Bigger Pockets? Is that the one? Or am I thinking of something different?
No, the realty brokerage. That I can't remember what it's called, but they do all their education for their agents online. Everybody and their mother is part of it, and I can't remember the name of it.
Too. I know what you're talking about, but I do.
EXP.
Yes. Yeah.
It's EXP. So the owner of EXP, I cannot remember his name. I feel like it's Glenn something. But anyway, he uses Trello. And I'm like, if a billionaire uses Trello, I can freaking use Trello too, you know?
Yeah.
So just having basic visual systems for me to track progress of different projects. I mean, that is one thing I do like is organizing stuff. So anyway, but you got to have the time to do that. And then you're organizing how you're delegating things. So I guess that having people in place has been like the biggest part of supporting those visions and ideas that I have. And then as far as organizing our syndications, particularly, I mean, one of the things, just like when you're buying a business or you're a business owner, is kind of having or if you're going to be a big business owner, like having a self-running B-type business was always my dream. And so whenever I do a business model, I want to see that it will eventually self-run itself. So you have to have people, you have to have systems. That's just how it works. And so you always have to have the exit in mind. So even like before you're buying, it doesn't matter what business, but for these businesses, it's going, okay, what can we sell at what year can we sell at? And then what kind of internal rate of return does that give us? And that's kind of how we analyze the deal up front. You know, if it makes sense for our exit, then it makes sense to go in that way, you know? So as far as those mini businesses, that's how that works. But for ours, you know, I'm in the process still of trying to figure out where I want to exit. The supporting companies, like the tech company, it's an app. It's not that crazy of a tech company. I can see kind of once we get to the point of building out like 3 or 4 features that I see, and then being able to monetize a few of those and put numbers to what we're doing and present a venture capital company. Hey, I could see, you know, selling that off at like maybe $10 million or something like that, you know, and having somebody else own that part of the business. But that still would be a way that we bring in women to get them comfortable and confident with cash flow in commercial real estate to then hopefully find us once they feel comfortable. It even gives like sections where you look through documents, like your 150-page PPM, like what's a summary or a guide that I can use to kind of know what to look at first, you know? So anyway, so there's a couple of things that I envision, but it's all to support people. And then honestly, experienced people like mentors, or I can't even call them mentors, but people I've met that have done this a million times that I have learned from that provide some kind of like guidance or structure. And then I go, okay, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's do the same thing. But then I'm going to put my creative spin on it. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think it contributes to another question I had was about like, how have you developed how you conduct due diligence? Because these apartment buildings, I feel like there are so many factors, like you said, so many puzzle pieces when you're looking at an investment. You hire somebody.
Exactly. I'm like,
Heritage Construction.
Like how to be able to, I think it's important what it all boils down to too for you. And correct me if I'm wrong, is like, you've taken stock of, all right, this is how I know I think, this is how I know I feel, is where I know my strengths are. Now let me build around that in terms of my team and where I need the help and the assistance, kind of going back to the like, oh, we'll find someone who complements your strengths. And it's like, well, yeah, you got to do a serious amount of soul searching before you're able to add to that team. So I think that's great. Yeah, you got to remove your ego and really say, what am I not great at? And what am I great at? And with every person that's involved with you, same thing. They got to be able to do the same thing and then go, oh, this is what I'm really great at. And then just focus on that. Forget all the crap you're not good at. It doesn't matter. Just focus on the thing you're good at. Exactly. I think that's a great way to approach it for sure. I want to talk some more too about the educational spaces that you've created as well. Your networking group, Women Who Invest Wednesday, the podcast #1, Leading Ladies. How did you create those, and how did you find like the time to create those too? Where was the moment where you said, all right, well, I want to create spaces to interact with my investors and the people I'm trying to reach and build the communities for? Yeah, so exactly that. Someone else had mentioned to me, someone else that has had far much more success than I have, and understands how to monetize things and understands what it takes, if you will, to reach that next step. Because right now I'm doing things by myself, then I'm getting people to help support that. And then how do we get to exponential growth? It's about getting our message out there and being able to scale. So
part of the message, is being able to empower women financially. And so there's a journey, and we're all on different parts of it, whether it's, like me, okay, I live under a bridge. Okay, I'm at a shelter. Okay, I live with somebody else and I don't want to live here with him anymore, or her, or whatever. I am now living by myself, and I feel insecure that like I got to go out drinking all the time, and I don't have anything that I do for me, or I have had success in my career, and I don't know what to do with my money. I mean, like, we're all in like different phases of like financial empowerment, wherever you're at, so having resources to share stories from other people who are somewhere in that journey so you can relate to them and hopefully, pull you in. So the podcast, again, I just time block. Monday's the only day that I do video calls. This is an exception. That's why I forgot about it.
No worries.
But normally on Mondays, I'm sitting in front of my computer. Normally I'm sitting in front of my computer and just knocking it out, for a time block of time. And then basically I have an assistant on the back end that I give her certain assets, from that interview, like the transcript or the video. And then she creates the podcast, and she does that on the back end. And then we've taken that media and created like a marketing piece, and then we blast it out on Monday. So we have Marketing Monday, and she does that. And then that goes out to like, our, but we use Buffer. It's free, by the way, that you can use to post like all of your socials at one time. And then so we can get our message out there without having to do a lot of little things. So I guess that's, again, time blocking for that thing. The book, I hired somebody else to ghostwrite and help me. I already had a bunch of transcripts that I put together. That was about women's stories in commercial real estate, in multifamily real estate. So the book's called WMFRE, Women in Multifamily Real Estate. I kind of already thought that I wanted to put those stories together and put them first, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is push women up that I know their story, I know them, whatever. And it's like, it's time to tell all their stories collectively. So with the podcast, it's more about women that are in business, getting from, what does it take to start, putting it like me, putting your first business on a credit card, or, living with mom and dad. Is it taking out a second mortgage on your house? It's like, what does it really take to start it up and get to traction where you start to get, sales, income, whatever. And then it's, what does it take to get going? It's crazy, but you got to hear the stories. Those people, what has been their lesson and what has been their biggest win. That's really was just what we cover. And hopefully that someone connects to somebody, and then they can even reach out to them in real life on LinkedIn or whatever. And who knows, it could be a mentorship situation, or, just the idea that you needed to go to that next step or whatever. So, it's just about time blocking for those different ventures.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a ton of sense too, is being able to, I like your focus on, let's put other people's stories out there. Let's create that spotlight where there hasn't been a spotlight before. And I think that I'm sure you've probably come across, like you said, a ton of different stories. Are there any like common denominators, if any at all, that you've found in terms of what are some common, successful traits you've seen in people, whether it's perseverance or focus or this and that, or common obstacles that you've seen some people encounter? Because with our podcast, it's a similar goal as yours, being able to kind of share with people who are around my age or women like us and this sort of thing, being able to kind of share with them, hey, these established people have been through that as well. So is there anything that you found in terms of commonalities?
A couple of things I would say to focus on success, that I've seen in people are creativity, the willingness. Like, I've got a billionaire friend that I asked him, like, what is the thing that, you would recommend to some, I don't even know what I asked him. It's probably, what's your biggest lesson? Or, that is it. What was your biggest lesson? And he's like, so basically you get taught all this bullshit all your life, even if it's stuff in school, even if it's, is the world flat, is the world round, whatever, like, question everything. Like, you don't have to question everybody and be a skeptic of every person you've ever met in your life. Not like that, but like concepts that you're taught, whether it's in school or whether it's in a webinar or whether it's whatever, like, go Google it, go do your research. Don't just take people at their word. And then when things start to line up, okay, that makes sense, and make your own decision, like on your own, like what you're doing in your life. Because so many people, I don't listen to 90% of people, because what I do is they jab their jaws, and then I go, well, have they actually achieved what it is that I want to achieve, or have they achieved what they're even talking about? No, they're just listening to something. They're listening to something that mom and dad said like 18 years ago, and therefore that is the rule. And it's like, but they've never even done that. Why would you listen to someone that's never done it? So that's something that I was told was important, is to question everything and be able to make sure that when you're going to accept something as fact, that you understand the why behind it. And so even in your everyday routine, I have to challenge myself to, instead of have these habits and patterns where I just repeat. Why do I drink coffee every day? Why do I put my hair in a bun every day? Why do I whatever? Like question yourself. And if you can break it down, usually there's just being present and being aware of like what you're doing. That's one thing. And then grit is a big, huge other one. Because like, for example, people get all excited to have a business and start a business, and okay, it'll be like that for a couple of years, right? If you can hang on. And then, once you start figuring out, okay, we're making income. Okay, here's the next thing we got to do, tweak. It's a long road process to be able to make a company. Very few people have the unicorn business, that's a tech company or something that just all of a sudden within 5, and sometimes it's actually really 10 years, but you don't see all the back work that goes into it, and all the initial relationships and the initial bank account openings and all the struggles and fights. So it's probably more like a 7-year trajectory, but in your eyes, it looks like it's an overnight success. So it's just having the grit to go and to look at yourself. And every time you get into a corner in everything, I had to deal with this with litigation. I had to deal with this with health. I had to deal with this with many things. When you get into a corner and you're stuck, that's the time when you have to use your grit to say, okay, I got to dig in and work harder. But after you've asked the question to people that know more than you and said, okay, I'm stuck. I'm going to ask 10 people that are way more experienced at this than me, and take those 10 ideas, and one of them is going to solve your problem and make your life 1,000 times better.
No, I love that approach. I mean, I think that's something, as I'm getting older, I am realizing that it's a big pet peeve of mine to just accept things as truth sometimes. So, and feeling stuck is also a giant theme. Welcome to being all of us. In my 20s, I guess. So.
No, that'll always happen, no matter what, like in business or whatever. Like when you're like, oh, I ran out of money. What the do I do now? Or like, you're stuck. There will be times when you're stuck and you don't know what to do. Or, I mean, I'm trying to like use a personal example. That's one of them, but like, this person's coming at me and they've taken everything from me and they've turned everybody against me, and yet I'm still responsible for this. I'm trying to think of a good example, but basically it's just, you get stuck to where you have no more options, no more money, no more people to call, you think. But then you reach out to those people that have, like, for example, been in your industry for a long time. There's a reason they've been around for a long time, because they've already been through this crap and they've figured out a way to get through it.
No, I think that's even, as a general example, I think it's a great one. There's a lot to take away from that is, oftentimes you hear I'm stuck, but like you said early on in the beginning too, is like, how do you get out of that? And I think like being able to have the tangible hows is really important.
Need ideas.
For you, what has been, you are continuing with your own education too, as well, in terms of you take hundreds of hours upon continuing education in your real estate. And I like that, your belief has been like, never take advice from someone who has never gone through something themselves, like you are just saying. So for you, it's something that you use in terms of tools to keep up with knowledge, if it's just your network, or is there something that you frequently come back to in terms of softwares, or I don't know, anything like that, anything that comes to mind when you think of tools that helps you continue to keep up with your industry?
Don't get caught up in it, but Clubhouse is pretty okay. It's not great, but it's okay to like scour topics that have to do with whatever it is that you're trying to learn. So for me, I'm trying to spend some time learning artificial intelligence because it's one of the next companies that will be rolling out. Can't give you a time frame on that, but anyway, on that one, it's just really understanding the basics. So you got to just listen to people talk about it, listen to the words they're using, listen to how they use it in conversation, problems they run into, what are the applications of it, and truly try to understand. So that was one way I've learned new things. Another way, because I'm really hands-on with certain things like real estate in the beginning, it was trying to figure out ways to tangibly go to people's properties, tangibly go to conferences where we could look at presentations and talk to people about, in masses, like how are they doing this and what are the pitfalls of that, and presentations on everything from like what is a cap rate to, so that's not really hands-on, but it felt like it was, because it was like a speed session of a weekend of info.
Right.
But,
and you're still taking action
so I guess
too to
for
kind
me,
of make that happen for yourself, to further that education. Like I am physically here, and that is going to help me learn something today. Just taking the drive and getting there.
Yeah, and asking questions is the thing that I can tout that I think I'm really good at. Like, I get that feedback a lot that, Kaylee, you're really good at this, that like I'll ask other people that I know that are successful, you know, like, well, how would you approach this? Or why is this situation like that? Or, you know, when you couldn't get a loan here, what's an alternative? Or how does preferred equity work? Or, you know, just stuff like that. Yeah, definitely.
I think that those are great approaches too. And they're not always, oh, I just always reread Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I feel like I need to, you know, keep up with my industry. No, I think there's so much more than that. It's constantly changing. So constantly being a part of that is great. So for you, I mean, you've talked about your why too, which I love. It's something that sticks out to me right away. Just reading your bio, it struck a chord with me. And your company culture has always been change the face of multifamily, all of those things. And you've touched on those, but so with the SheVest app that's coming out soon, I kind of wanted to touch on that too with this conversation as well. What are your goals for the further development? Where is it at now? What is the app going to be able to accomplish for women too in terms of your why?
So the app's out now. If you go to the App Store, it's SheVest, SHEVEST. We're looking for about 1,000 users worth of data in beta before we can get to our next couple of phases. We need a couple hundred more people, so please go download that ASAP and poke around in there and click stuff, because then we know like what you want, what you don't want. Next phase, I suppose, in there is adding in, we have a little bit of it, but adding in more of like a mindset training component, and then also a little bit more information on document analysis. The 3 places I saw women getting stuck were mindset. So having like that little guy in your head that says, you know, you're not old enough, you don't know enough, you don't have enough money, like whatever it is, you're self-doubt. And having people that support you through that, but also kind of there's some exercises you can go through on your own that can help with that. And then being able to understand how the cash flow education works in commercial real estate, tax advantages, all the actual education, and then also looking at docs. So I believe that will give women more confidence to invest in different deals, because even that app covers like mobile home parks, RV parks, triple net leases, multifamily, self-storage. I can't even remember all the things, but all the commercial assets that cash flow. So, and the pros and cons, and it's being shared from a woman who's got at least 2 years of experience in each field. Oh, even a hotel developer. There's a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So, I think that will give women confidence to go, okay, let's listen to the pros and cons. Let's gain some confidence. Let's feel more confident with looking at documents again. Get an attorney too. I mean, seriously, they just review them for you to look out for your best interest, so you don't get stuck in things you don't want to be. And then to where that women will invest more, because there was a Merrill Lynch study, I think in 2018 or 19, that came out that said that the people that they surveyed, of the women, 61% of the women were cited lack of knowledge as to why they don't invest. So hopefully that will create confidence and some more knowledge to have women be stronger investments or investors.
That's awesome. I will absolutely 100% download this after the conversation, because I think that is it puts kind of like we've been saying throughout this conversation, the fact that a lot of this has to come from you first. And I think for women to be able to have that private first step, if it's not necessarily in their nature to be that person that asks the questions, to pick themselves up, whether it's from their background or just a general lack of confidence that, you know, they shouldn't have, but they were born with. I don't know how to best say it, but being able to kind of...
Yeah, you have family members like mine that are not empowering at all. They just work at McDonald's or whatever, and they have no clue. And so this is a convenient way where you don't even got to ask permission. You don't have to pay for a seminar for a weekend. You don't have to put pants on. Yes. You don't have to buy or pay for a babysitter.
Right.
You can just literally on your phone go through these modules where hopefully the interactive video, and then later quizzes will come out, etc. But
that's awesome.
Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I think that you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, like if I can spend 5 minutes on Duolingo every day to further my education on Spanish, I can do that with investing. I can become more literate in investing as well. So I think that's incredible. So congratulations. I can't wait to see how far that goes as well. And thank you for...
What I envisioned for doing for it, honestly, is there's a woman out there, Sally Krawcheck. I haven't met her yet, but she owns an app or created an app called Elevest. So her app covers paper assets and stock market assets. So she's covering that investment that part of investments, not like equity and physical assets. So what I see happening is building mine up to where it's like hers. We already kind of have some professionals in that app that you can do like a video call with them in the app.
Yeah.
And so that you can get advice from an attorney, advice from a chartered financial analyst, et cetera. Basically having them buy our app.
Nice, yeah.
And put it with theirs. The people that have access to paper assets can also have access to physical assets. And when the market sucks in either, they can, diversify in
Absolutely.
either.
I think that that's an incredible long-term goal too for you as well. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thanks for taking the time to sit down with me and really get into this stuff. I know you've been really candid and generous with what you've been able to share with us, and I'm excited for our listeners to be able to hear that as well. So one question I do ask everybody at the end of these interviews is, in looking at, and I know we've touched on this in a lot of different ways in terms of your network and other people that you've spoken with, Kaylee, but for you, what are your keys to building wealth, unlocking financial freedom, and your definition of success? So this does not have to be financial, but what's something the way that that informs the way that you uniquely look at the word success?
For me, success means a couple of things, but I really get a lot of joy from finding specifically women, because I look at women as as my sisters. So I don't really have a relationship with my sisters at this point in time. It will get there soon, I have faith, because of some family things. But success for me is seeing other women find the lessons that I've learned or find the things that I've gone through and listening to them, and skipping some of the things I've had to go through, or utilizing the knowledge that I'm providing, or the documents that I can provide. Or, people did it for me where it's like, okay, well, do you need an operating agreement instead of paying an attorney $15,000? Here's one, use this, doctor it up, whatever. But being able to see women excel, succeed, and skip a few of the, harder things in this journey by listening, seeing them use that to succeed gives me a lot of joy. So I guess that's success. And that's why part of the 1 billion She-Vestors is because it's using, again, the lessons that I went through to get to a place where you're like, oh, I do deserve to call myself an investor, and I do have the ability to financially provide for my family and create generational wealth. I can do that on my own.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think that that's incredible. I feel really empowered myself after talking to you today. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your why, and for kind of imploring all of our listeners, myself included, to start thinking about, what their own why is, and getting this conversation started with people within themselves and within their circles. So one final question before we do go: how can people reach you? And do you have any social medias, websites? I have a few links that I'll share on your episode show notes from us, but do you have any ways that people can contact you directly if they have more questions for you?
Yeah, definitely. You can go to my website, theapartmentqueen.com. There is a form at the top that will follow you around pretty much to every page to get you qualified for future investments. That's something to look at. There's a page with investor resources, and that's got, I believe, a free PPM guide. So if you're wanting to look at, your documents, you have an attorney look at your documents, but wanting to get an idea of like what to look for. There's a lot of videos, I believe, that are on there with the link to our YouTube channel. And then there's a couple of other resources on the site, which obviously when you submit your information, I will get a hold of you. Like if you had a 1031 exchange, there's a program for those, putting them into apartments. We have an underwriting software for more active investors. We have that fund that is my main focus right now, bringing more women into investing into apartment deals that we have under contract. We have a generational wealth summit that you can get onto anytime that you want to, that is accessible through the website. It's basically all in that top menu bar.
Nice, yeah.
So theapartmentqueen.com, and if you submit any form, I will know that you're on our list, and I will likely be calling you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kaylee, for being here today. I appreciate it. And thank you all for listening. Be on the lookout for more CamaPlan events featuring Kaylee McMahon and the Apartment Queen. But until then, thank you everyone for joining us this week on the road to financial freedom. Be sure to tune in next week to hear more from experts who have paved their roads to financial freedom, or call CamaPlan today to learn more about how you can start to take control of your future wealth. Thank you again, Kaylee, and everybody have a great week. Thank you all for tuning into our podcast. We truly hope that you're enjoying your ride along the road to financial freedom so far. If you like what you've heard and learned, or if you want to hear more about certain topics that we may have already covered or have yet to cover, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. We would love to hear any feedback from you so that we may continue to make our podcast the best that it can be for you, our listeners. Thanks again, everyone. And remember, tune in next week to The Road to Financial Freedom.